Um, we are on chapter 6. I made a mistake. So like, I think like 2 readings ago, I said we were on chapter 5, but we were on chapter 4. And then last time was chapter 5. So now we're on chapter 6. So, okay. Here we go. Look, I know I'm a good boy, but please tell me. I don't need a shot, Graham complained. We were in the sitting room, lounging on the love seat. It was a good thing I was so small because he took up practically the whole thing. Floretta was tidying up the kitchen after one big meal and told us to vamos out of her way. So I wasted no time stripping off my human form and getting comfortable for a bit before we ventured into town. I purred a little to place at the dog's uneasiness. You wrestle werewolves into submission, but a little needle poke scares you? Grim blew out a breath through his black, wet nose. I was born to wrestle werewolves. Needles? Not so much. Sorry, partner. I can't tell you one way or another. It's up to Lila, not me, whether you are due or not. A tiny poke is better than a life-threatening disease, right? Grim groaned in response, dropping his head and trying to hide his face with a paw. And then he shot back up, perking his ears a bit, adding, But I can't get fleas. What makes you all so sure I can contract regular dog diseases? It was true. Fleas hated Grim. I chalked it up to the small amount of magic running in his veins. Magic must be a natural flea deterrent. I wasn't complaining either, because fleas hated me just as much. Still, fleas are easy to see. Microbites are not. Just suck it up and it will be over. Better to be safe than sorry, right? Before we go, can I tell you about the new job? Sure. What is it this time? It's a little out of our wheelhouse, I began, and thought back to the dowser which I had already memorized. I rattled it off to Grim. Want it alive or incapacitated? Boy burglar, name, unknown, age, under 18, magic, unknown, distinguishing features, dark hair of either black or brown color, thin build, last seen in Charred Grove, crimes, theft of large amount of food from locals, both stores and private, theft of clothing from Charred Grove, assault of Henry Whitman of Charred Grove. Reward, $800, payable by Constable Fletcher of Nobby Hill Corrections. Not much, and yet they usually don't bother the bounties for small stuff, Graham observed. That's why I'm interested. We're going to town today, and then we'll leave right thing in the morning. That will give you enough time to recover from your checkup. Graham groaned. It was the tail end of summer in Vinland, and in our little patch of the Archicon region, that meant delightfully warm days against the intermediate cloud cover. We were reaching the end of the dry time, and the almost incessant rain would be starting within a month. 2 or 3 were lucky because we locals never took glorious days for granted. The 3 of us decided to walk to town instead of hitching Humbert back up. Oops. Sorry. I spent so much of my time as a human with this last job that I decided to do the bulk of the trek as a cat. The warm sun felt wonderful on my white fur, with my 2 dark spots on my head soaking up the rays even more. I felt a little sorry for Grim. as he must have been quite hot in his shaggy black fur. He was accustomed to his permanent coat, however, and the only sign of this comfiture he displayed was a bit of light panting as he walked. Floretta didn't mind that I chose my cat form. She simply enjoyed the animal company on the walk. Occasionally, she would speak to us about something that crossed her mind. I could understand human speech in my true form, but I did have to concentrate more on the words than I otherwise would as a human. Grim only caught the gist, so he often asked me to translate for him if something didn't make sense. Soon enough, we came close enough to town that it became urgent for me to be in my human guise. I ran off into the ditch, just in case, and came back on 2 legs. We continued our casual stroll until we reached the edge of town, at which point Floretta parted ways, promising to meet us back at the cottage after our visit to her father. Nobby Hill wasn't a large town by anyone's measure, but it was substantial for what it was. It also boasted a state-of-the-art courthouse, which made it the unofficial head for criminal investigation in Tenuka County. Many of the neighboring towns came here to post their boundaries and to judge and prosecute many of the bigger trials, even if the crimes committed were far away. Give me 1 second. Alright, we're going to try this tea. So hold on. Okay. Give me, hold on. That's some interesting tasting tea. Hold on. Oh. Okay, so, sorry. It has like a weird, like, spice to it or something. It's so weird. I can't determine if I like it or not. If you never had this tea, I don't know if I would recommend it, to be honest. I mean, it's not bad, but it's definitely interesting. I can't even explain it. It has like a spice taste or something. I don't know. Hopefully it helps. I don't know. If not, we'll have to try something else. Okay. Let's continue. The stately white courthouse featured an expansive lawn out front, lush, green, and meticulously maintained. On nice days like this, it was a beacon for those of the town that were searching for a little sun and relaxation. The lawn also contained the town notice board. It was stuck to one side instead of in the middle, so as not to mar the view of the regional building behind it. The board was rather long and double-sided. One side was for general posting, lost pets, items for sale, upcoming events in Nobby Hill. This was the side that faced the street and got the most attention. I wanted to scope out the other side. That section was strictly for posting pertaining to the courthouse and the law in general. In other words, it held all of the bounties that were available. My bread and honey. Bounty hunters like myself thrived off the dark side of the notice board, although sometimes the bounties were slim pickings. Most of the time, there was a glut of options to choose from. Today, it was somewhere in between. I scanned the various papers, giving each bounty a brief once-over. Most were small things. Some were just for questioning a mark. Those didn't provide much of a bounty, but would at least pay for a meal or two if we were in dire financial straits. Many times, the supernatural bounties were the best to take because they tend to have a more dangerous quality to them, and therefore needed an extra bonus for most bounty hunters to risk it. Those were naturally the cases I gravitated to, seeing as how both myself and my partner were considered supernatural. But alas, none graced the board today. As a matter of fact, the bounty I already held in my hand was the highest paying one. That concerned me a bit because it would automatically make it more appealing to fellow hunters, and competition wasn't my goal. Clashes with other hunters was something I had to put up with a lot. However, seeing as how Nobby Hill not only contained the region's courthouse, but it was also the home of the Northwest Bounty Hunters Guild. I was a member of said guild, but only because I had to be in order to be a bounty hunter. The laws in our region made it clear that rogue hunters were not eligible for the bounties. I surmised this was the guild's way of making more money, since dues were owed annually. As it was, I felt enormously uncomfortable stepping by the lodge, as some members rented out rooms and chose to lounge there between jobs. It was a boys' club, for sure, as I was the sole female member. My guildmates made sure to make me feel welcome on my first day by leaving a dead mouse in my mail cubby. It was meant to freak me out with the hopes I would quit. The joke was on them, though. I picked it up and took it with me back to Floretta's and had a nice little meal in the privacy of her backyard as a cat. It was delicious. The Guild Lodge just happened to be located across the street from the message board, which was convenient for any hunter passing by. Yes, competition could be fierce. As if to drive the point home, I sensed someone approaching me from behind. I spun and turned to hide the paper in my hand, but I wasn't quick enough. The man towered over me, all brawn. He was in his mid-30s and had a slightly raised scar on his left cheek. He smiled as he met my eyes, but it was the look of a bully who was about to get some pleasure belittling someone smaller, like me. Well, it's Baby Bounty Hunter. Still in one piece, I see, he said cheerfully as he gave me a quick once-over. Here's the thing about my chosen profession. There were a lot of jerks in it. Big, muscled, testosterone-ridden jerks. Most of them were older than me, had been doing this for longer, and, last but not least, could pee standing up. That made me younger, smaller, and female. The burnt of many of their jokes, despite the fact that I had more than proven my capabilities over the last year. And so, the responsibility fell to me to make sure my fellow hunters didn't get complacent with their, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, misogynistic views. And above all, that their views weren't justified by any Impetude on my part. It was often exhausting, but then again, I clearly relished a good challenge. I plastered on a smile, the one that showed way too much teeth. Why, Alan, hello! Still avoiding showers, I smell. What brings you here? Alan Golfid, guffawed. I think that's how. I had to give it to him. He wasn't the worst man out there in terms of bullying. He may have liked to flick verbal crap at me, but I could tell that deep down he held a nugget of respect for me. I couldn't say the same for many of the others. It also helped that he rarely crossed paths while out in the field. Alan liked to stick to the more mundane ever since he tangled with a rather nasty specimen of a rogue shifter, hence the scar he sported. I rarely viewed him as strict competition. Alan answered my question with an exaggerated wink. Why, this is where I pick up all the pretty lady hunters, naturally. Well, that was different. My desire to banter suddenly fled as I grappled with a surge of discomfort. I waved my bounty paper like a tiny white flag in front of me. Well, good luck with that. I need to get inside to ask about this one. Alan scrunched his eyes to try to read the moving paper. He puzzled out a hint and found it on the board, tearing a copy off for himself. He narrowed his eyes as he read the description. Finally, he met my gaze on the top of his page. This one, huh? He mused aloud. Too far for me, but just a heads up. I saw St. Cloud grab this one too, just an hour ago. I groaned. Out of all the bounty hunters out there, Gavin St. Cloud was the one I liked least of all. He and I almost always clashed over bounties. And he was good. He was also a jerk. If you want to go after this one too, you might want to get a move on. Gavin plans to head out tomorrow, I think. Alan added with a slight raise of his eyebrows. Thanks for the warning, I replied, frowning a bit at him. Why was he being so nice to me? Alan smiled again, a real smile, without the cruelty. Anytime, baby bee. Listen, if you have a few to spare, maybe you and I could go get a drink at Lucky's pub. Huh? Was he asking me out for a drink? This was entirely too weird. As nice as he was being, I had no interest in doing anything remotely social with him. I was taken off guard and my uneasiness increased. Thanks, but no, I don't drink, I finally replied. It wasn't a lie, either. I never touched the stuff in my life. Alcohol smelled repugnant to me in my cat form. Not much better while human. I'd rather stick to water, or I was feeling lively, a little bit of dairy. Alan stepped forward, encroaching on my personal bubble bit. Oh, come on. I thought that was a nice tip I just gave you. Surely you could see it in your heart to have one little drink with me. Okay, now I was getting annoyed. I was about to tell him that I didn't owe him anything and to leave me alone, but a loud growl answered for me. Graham, who had been lounging on the sunny side of the board during this time, had clearly sensed my discomfort and stalked to my side like a silent yet vengeful shadow. Give me 1 second. Alright. Sorry, I had to get a drink of tea. Of interesting tasting tea. Alright. It's not great tea. It's really weird. So, I don't know if it's really helping though either. Like, I could kind of I'm already kind of starting to feel in my throat. So, alright. Let's continue. Alright. Alan instantly backed up a step. Or, maybe not, he replied with a nervous undertone. Next time, perhaps. Stay safe out there, baby bee. He walked away. I waited until Alan was gone from my line of sight and then let out a breath. Ferris fur balls, I muttered. I swiveled around to pet Grim's head. Good timing, partner, I told him. He tried to lick my hand. Let's go get this over with. Satisfied that there were no other bounties we wanted, the two of us approached the courthouse. Inside the grand front doors, a guard approached. Since I was a regular to the bounty office, we recognized one another. Miss Curtin, welcome. Sorry. That's a dude. That's a dude. Nice dinosaur. Is it dancing? That's funny. Okay. I really hope to be able to unlock the emotes here soon, but I don't know. We'll have to see. All right. Miss Curtin, welcome. He granted me with a professional, honest smile. Hey, Frankie, I greeted back. I bent over to remove the only weapon I ever carried. It was a knife, about 6 inches in length, that I kept in a special pocket in my right boot. After the incident with Amos Frost, Floretta got a little concerned for my safety, even with my new giant dog partner. In order to let me continue this line of work, she insisted on me carrying some sort of protection. Guns gave me the heebie-jeebies, so the knife was a compromise. It was just an ordinary knife, though. Floretta had it enchanted. All I had to do was make the tiniest cut on my foe. The knife would react to the blood on it. Hold on. The knife would react to the blood on it, and the next wield would be a fatal blow to the owner of said blood. The enchantment would only last for one enemy before it would wear off. It was always my last resort. I called it Hail Mary. Straightening back up, I slipped Hail Mary out of my boot and placed it on the table next to me without being asked. Then I held my arms out to my sides and widened my feet a bit. I stared straight ahead and asked Frankie, Who's working the office today? Frankie waved a small crystal orb over the front of me, and then over Grim's back. It stayed a clear color, which was the favorable outcome. In the presence of a dangerous weapon, magical or physical, the orb would have darkened to a soot black. Hail Mary would have set it off in a heartbeat if I hadn't removed it from my person. Frankie straightened, satisfied with the results of his weapon check, and shot me another smile. It's Angie today, he said, with a tiny shrug. Whoops. He picked up Hail Mary and tucked it in a cubby behind him for safekeeping. Well, it could be worse. I waved my hand in farewell as I took the left hallway and went through the door that said Bounty Office in bold letters. The office room reminded me of a small bank lobby with wood paneling coming up halfway and the rest of the workers' area ensconced by delicate metal bars. Much like a large bird cage, sat the noisiest canary of them all. Why, Miss Curtin, Angie Burton gleefully called out. What a pleasant surprise! I wasn't expecting to see you so soon. Whatever can I do for you today, hun? Angie, bless her, was a talker. That woman could pack in more words per square inch than anybody else I have come across. I usually left the office with a mild twitch after being in her presence for 5 minutes. But she had a heart of gold and a soft spot for me as well. Given that I was the only female hunter in the area, and as Angie liked to say, we woman folk have to look out for each other. I approached her cage with a forced smile. Hi, Angie. I greeted with less enthusiasm than she had shown me. I slid the wanted sheet into the paper with narrow slot at the bottom of the cage. What can you tell me about this one? Angie took the paper from me and studied it. Her blonde ringlets fell forward into her round face as she bent her head. She blew one of them to the side rather ineffectively. As it bounced right back, her forehead creased. Angie turned to her left to grab a key from a hook by the door that gave her access to the hall. She bent down to insert the key into the filing cabinet that lay directly underneath the hook. I had seen her do this before to access files on the bounties that were posted here in Nobby Hill. Sure enough, she rummaged through the open cabinet until she came across a folder and pulled it out. It took a moment to pursue the file. It's an odd one, she began, somewhat slowly paced for her. All I have on it is it came in 2 days ago from a private source, not directly from Chargrove. An independent is footing the bill on this one, but through us instead of hiring privately like they normally do. Once the criminal is apprehended, a trial will be held here. But we also have to send a telegraph to the independent source over the criminal source once the criminal is detained here. I imagine the wrong Chargrovers will have to come here to testify. I'm not sure why they aren't keeping to their own jurisdiction, though it's a little fishy to me. I got it. Not my place to say anything, of course. But but it's a strange way to go about it, if you ask me. All this for a little petty theft. Don't forget the bulging, I pointed out. Well, yes, I suppose that's a bit more serious, but it's not like anyone was murdered or anything. If knocking someone over the head was a serious offense, I would think most of the pubs in this country would have serious troubles. She laughed quietly and took a breath. But anyways, if you want this one, be quick about it. We haven't had too much interest in it, but enough. Particularly from a certain somebody. Angie rolled her eyes theoretically and then winked at me. She knew about my personal nemesis. Yes, so I've been told already. I rolled my eyes as well. Any other bits you could tell me? Angie opened her mouth, but was interrupted by her office door opening. She instead clamped her lips shut as she looked at the interloper. It was the head bounty clerk, a stern, upright woman by the name of Miss Clark. While Angie adored me, Miss Clark clearly felt the opposite. She was so unfriendly that after more than a year of meeting her, I still didn't know what her first name was. I had done nothing to peeve this woman, but the older clerk simply did not like me, and used her words and body language to prove it. Miss Curtin? She practically barked. How many times must I tell you to keep that dog outside? Oh, yes, her dislike of me also extended to Grim. I was also fairly certain Miss Clark was the only human alive that intimidated my partner. His ears drooped at her tone. At least once more? I hazarded with a shaky smile to prove I was trying to lighten the dismissal mood Miss Clark had brought with her. Miss Clark was not amused. However, I looked at Grim and walked back to the hallway, motioning for him to wait outside when I opened the door. He instantly complied. As I took care of the problem, Miss Clark had begun to berate Angie over some minor infraction. I tried not to eavesdrop. Yes, Miss Clark, Angie replied, her tone meek and shoulders hunched, satisfied that her indomitable will was still being enforced. Miss Clark nodded her graying head, glanced at me with poorly hidden disdain, and marched back out of the door, clicking it nearly shut. Angie let out a small breath and looked chagrined. She sheepily glanced my way. Sorry about that, she remused, forcing her usually cheerful demeanor back into her words. Where were we? The Chargrove case. Anything else you could tell me? Angie snapped the folder shut, as if Miss Clark could see through the walls. Sorry, hun, no. The rest is confidential. Sympathy laced her voice. Angie had probably already given me more tidbits than she was supposed to. Her mouth sometimes worked harder against her work protocol like that. Her mouth sometimes worked against her work protocol like that. If I had got to Miss Clark from the get-go, I would have gotten much, much less. Still, there were things about this case that simply were not adding up, and more clues would have been most welcome. I tipped my head at Angie all the same, with a smile on my lips. Thanks for your time, Angie, I cheerfully called out as I turned to leave. Any time, dear, was her exuberant reply. Alright, give me 1 second again. Alright, I think I'm going to try to do another chapter. So we'll see. Are there any thoughts on this chapter so far? Miss Clark seems awful, to be honest. I don't think I would be a fan working with Miss Clark. But the one lady, she seems really nice. I think I would be like her. I would get in trouble for talking all the time. Angie. Because I have a tendency to talk a lot, and it's gotten me in trouble sometimes, so I definitely like Angie. Alright. I mean, we're still kind of early in the story, so yeah. Yep. Okay, so just a side thing. I actually know a few people who could probably relate to the main character. I've met a few people that that's how it is in their job. It's like they're the only females and stuff. They said it's not easy, so I bet that's how she feels, you know. So, so yeah. So, anyways, oh, sorry for the yawn there. All right. Well, we're gonna go to chapter 7 because I don't think it's very long. So, the numbers on here is kind of like messed up, so I really can't tell. But I have an estimation. A lot of times when I get things from authors like books, you know, or they show up as like documents, and so then the numbers on the page numbers are all out of whack and stuff. So okay. Well, let's continue then. Okay. I don't know if the tea's helping, but I'm going to say it is. Check. Okay. I just needed to check real quick. Alright. Whoops. Dr. Lila Williams, just Lila, to Lyle. Dr. Lyle Williams, just Lyle to his friends, was Feretta's father closest neighbor on Rabbit Hole Road. He owned a small farm that was situated to the right side of the woodland, only half a mile outside of Nobby Hill, the last major stop on the way out of town. Lyle was the local veterinarian. He saw to the health of Nobby Hill plants, pets, and livestock, from cats and dogs to cows and horses. And instead of renting a space within the town limits, Lyle had the room to hold his practice on his own property. He also did house calls on a regular basis. On his farm, there was a small herd of 3 sheep, 1 milking cow, a couple of horses, and a large flock of chickens. But only 2 people called it home, Lyle and his housekeeper. Lyle, or Dr. Williams to his clients, was well known and well liked by the community. His housekeeper, however, was a bit of a mystery. No one from town had ever met her, and she wasn't from the surrounding areas. Nobody even knew what her name was. I imagine that tongues wagged a bit when she first appeared, especially since she never spoke to anybody, and she was only ever seen through the windows of the house and never in town. But she was no mystery to me. She was my mother. Belinda Curtin was an aging calico tabby cat who was now living the good life. After she left my father, who I've never met, and produced me, she decided human life was too complex to keep up with. We were basically feral while I was a kitten. After meeting Floretta and Lyle, I convinced her to retire in a little more comfort. She was a stubborn one, but I eventually won out. Lyle and Belinda's agreement was that she could live in the barn rent-free on 2 conditions. 1, Mom had to keep the barn free of rodents. And 2, once a week she had to become a human and give the house a good once-over. The rest of the time, she could be a lazy barn cat and nap in the sun to her heart's content. It was a good deal, considering that Lyle didn't need a constant companion, and my mom was more than happy to while away her time in isolation. Although on occasion she would go up to Lyle if he was in the barn to demand a little petting. Lyle always complied with a smile on his face. This afternoon, I found my mother lounging outside of the house on the porch swing. At 14 years of age, she was starting to show some feline maturity, and napping and lounging were her two favorite hobbies. As I stepped onto the porch in my human form, she opened one eye in a slit. Into a slit before noting my presence and closing it again. I rolled my eyes at the lackluster greeting before knocking on the door. At this, she let out a little chirrup in my direction. Grim, by my side as usual, chuffed back. I waited another second to see if anyone would answer my knock before I transformed and jumped onto the swing's other cushion. Lyle's outback. Wait. Who? Sorry, hold on. I think I got confused here. Lyle's out back in the clinic. He told me to tell you to find him. And I missed you too, Mom. Yes, it was another successful job. Thanks for asking. Graham snickered. Mom ignored him, which is what she did about 90% of the time. She was of the mind that cats are superior to dogs. She instead stretched theoretically before settling into a sitting position, regarding me with half-closed green eyes. Hello, Cressida, child of mine. Tell me, please, are you of sound mind? Was the world stayed safe from the coddles of the world? Oh, sarcasm. Two could play that game. Yes, mother dear, Graham and I triumph over evil yet another day. She leaned in and started grooming my ear, a rusty purr coming to life in her throat. I am glad you are well, Cress, she murmured in a more motherly fashion, although you know how I feel about your line of work. That's all. Yes, I did know. Mom made it abundantly clear that she thought of what she thought of my job. I believe I once heard her describe it as Cressida playing the hero and saving the world one villain at a time, with a dog. Personally, my entire existence hinged on keeping a great evil out of this world, and her existence too, because nothing bad had ever happened on her watch, or the watch of any of our lineage. Come to think of it, Mom had developed a complacent attitude towards the whole prophecy thing, but not one to get into an argument with my mother. At least not half the time. I dropped the subject. Anything new here? I asked her. Let's see. Not much. Although I did see that Lyle got a shipment of brand new, super sharp hydromic needles. She glanced in Grimm's direction. He gave a theoretical shake of his body and stalked off, muttering something about evil cats. It's just as well I couldn't hear exactly what he was saying, given that he was making derogatory remarks not only about my mother, but my species. Still, I chuckled. You are terrible, Mom, I chided. She gave the feline equivalent of a shrug. I licked her forehead affectionately. I better help my partner get through his exam. Behave yourself, Mom. I jumped down from the swing and resumed my second form, waving at my mother, who was already getting comfortable for another nap. I turned and started for the back of the house in the direction Graham went. Give me 1 second. Alright. Sit, Grim, Lyle commanded. Graham sat dutifully. Shake. Graham extended his paw for Lyle to hold. To hold. Other paw, Graham. Graham extended his other paw for inspection. Say, "Aw." Graham opened his mouth wide. This routine always tickled Lyle pink. He grinned as he inspected Graham's teeth. I wish all my patients were this compliant, he said to me. I had stayed in my human form to more easily communicate with Lyle. The veterinarian continued his exam with the very accommodating canine, running his hands down flanks, lifting his tail, and palpating his abdomen. Finally, Lyle stood up. For a large, intact male approaching the age of 7, he is in excellent shape, Lyle praised. Graham wagged his tail hesitantly, liking the positive tone of his doctor, but unaware what might come next. But 7 is still considered young for lichen hounds. Oh, sorry. But 7 is still considered young for lichen hounds, I argued. Lyle nodded in agreement as his eyes continued assessing Grim. That's it, which goes against every other dog breed I know. Usually the bigger the dog, the shorter the lifespan. That is accurate. Side note. That is very accurate. So, we have a dog, and, I did some research before we got our dog on dogs and stuff, and, little dogs, live up to, 20 years. And then, my dog, who's, a big dog, he only lives 10. Or, that's the average for his breed and stuff. But, yeah, the bigger the dogs are, unfortunately, the lifespan is, shorter. So, I fake coughed into my fist and let out a quick magic. The veterinarian grinned at me. I know. I'm a Monday. And so are most animals. Magic isn't something I encounter a whole lot in this line of work. He surveyed the two of us, adding, present company excluded. I grinned. Graham's tail gave another half-hearted wag. Clearly, he was still a tad uneasy. I hardly think of you as a Monday, Lyle, I told the older man. The term referred to people with no magical skills. It was slang for mundane. After all, look at your daughter. He smiled and shook his head. I can't take any credit for her skills. That was all her mother. At that, he went silent, perhaps thinking of his wife, who, as I've been told, left Lyle and Floretta years ago and never returned. I couldn't help but feel that I had inadvertently stumbled upon a sore subject. The silence became a tad awkward. Lyle shook off his short air of melancholy, however, and changed the subject with slight inelegance. No shot today, he told the big dog directly, soothing both of us a grin. Grim immediately lost all apprehension and jumped up and turned a quick circle, looking more like a puppy than a regal lichen hound. No, and shot were definitely a part of his vocabulary. Thanks, Doc, I said. He waved a hand dismissively and started picking up his instruments. Lyle's clinic was an outbuilding that had been fitted to care for his smaller patients and his clients chose if his clients chose to travel to him. Grim, weighing in at nearly 150 pounds, barely qualified as a smaller patient. "How is my other favorite patient doing today?" he asked me with a friendly wink. Floretta's father was the only other human. Human to know that I was more than what I seemed. Although, like his daughter, I let him assume I was just a shapeshifter and nothing else out of the ordinary. When Floretta had first brought me to his home, I wanted to keep everything from him. But Lyle was no dummy and knew immediately there was something more to me than meets the eye. He patched me up, and he'd been my trusted doctor ever since. Little break. Okay. Lyle was a solitude-built black man in his late 50s, with a bit of a paunch and receding hairline. What hair he had left was unruly curls, just like his daughter's, although his was salt and pepper instead of brown, and kept trimmed short. He was only slightly taller than Floretta. His daughter must have taken after her mother more in looks, for the only thing that seemed to have gotten from her father, besides the hair, was his kind eyes, although his were a shade darker than hers. I waved one hand in dismissing gesture, a smile gracing my lips. "Just fine, doctor," I bantered. "How's life for you?" He rubbed his goatee chin. "Well, I'm fine," he mused, "but just between you and me, your mother has been awfully persnickety. More so than usual, I mean." He let out a chuckle before sobbing again. "I don't suppose you could see what was wrong with her, would you? She won't even shift most of the time to chat with me." I rolled my eyes. Mothers. "Sure, Lyle. I'll do that right now. Are you sure Grim doesn't need a shot?" I shimmered down as Lyle let out a large laugh. As I ran down towards the house, Grim yelled at me, "That was a low blow, furball." Chuckling to myself, I reached the porch in no time and came to a sudden halt in front of my still recumbent mother. I jumped up and stared at her. "Okay, Mother, what's the deal? Lyle said you weren't talking to him." "Hello again, Cressida. Back for more?" I wouldn't let her sway me. "Spill." She stretched out a front leg, claws clawed, and then tucked it back under and glared at me through heavily lidded eyes. "Cressida, how old am I?" The question had caught me off guard. 14, right? "And how old are you?" "I am 2, Mom." "And how much longer must I wait to see my only daughter finally settle down and pass the torch?" "Oh, sweet Farah, help me." My eyes flattened. "Not this again, Mom." She hadn't blinked this entire time. Now she did slowly. "You asked what was bothering me." "Mom, I was looking, Cressida, actually looking for my mate for years. I was 7 when I met your father." I had heard all of this 1,000 times. Yes, my mother didn't find her true love until she was 7 years old. His name was Roger Curtin, and he was an accountant. Not exactly thrilling, I know. Anyways, They got married and tried to start a family, but after a few years of trying, with no results, Mom began to wonder if perhaps she had married the wrong man. Keep in mind that there must be true love between the couple for the magic to grant a child. Before I was even conceived, she had written a letter to my dad explaining that she could no longer be with him, etc., and placed it somewhere within easy access of a cat. Finally, after 5 years of marriage, Mom found out that she could no longer shift back to human, which could mean only one thing. She retrieved the letter and placed it on Dad's desk and left her home forever, never to look back. I was born shortly after that, out in the woods in that abandoned barn. Mom, I stated, my voice firm, I am younger than you at this age because I spend a lot of time as a human. I have loads of time to find the one. I want to do something in this world before I settle down. He's out there, I'm sure, but I have plenty of time to find him. I jumped down, ignoring the angry stare and flattened ears my mother was throwing at me, and ending this rancid discussion. Now, be nice to Lyle. He just wants to help you. I'm heading back to Floretta's. I'm off to save the world again, first thing in the morning. I stormed off like a petulant kitten, rushing down the driveway to the road before my mom could get another word in edgewise. I was out of sight of Lyle's homestead before I heard familiar toenails clicking on the road at a fast pace behind me. Chris? Hold up, Graham called out, his mouth open in a wide pant. I slowed to a walk with Graham while Graham caught up. She is without a doubt the most irritating animal on the face of the planet, I fumed out loud. Hold on. Yeah, my voice is starting to go. It's going. Alright. Mirth rolled off Grim. Where did mirth come from? Okay, I think I'm a little confused. Okay, okay, maybe this, okay, I think, okay. Mirth rolled off Grim. So, in other words, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree? I glared at him. Oh, it's a him. My bad. My ears flattening. Cats are good at glaring. He just stared right back. You want a claw in the eye? Maybe then Lyle will have to give you a shot. My threat did not faze the big dog. Instead, he went into play. I'm confused. Okay. He went into play position, rump up, front legs splaying down low, mouth open but no teeth on display. You have to catch me first, he declared before tearing off down the road, kicking up little pebbles with his speed like a giant puppy. I sighed and started running after him. I didn't push myself, knowing there was no way I'll catch up to the beast. Before long, I had reached Floretta's house. Grim lounged at the foot of the front door, tongue lolling to the side as he panted heavy. I won. I just stared with fake contempt. You cheated, dog brains. Furball. Stink muffin. Stink muffin? Are you just making up insults now? Grim's tongue went back in his mouth as he sat up and shook his coat. Looks that way, I snarked. I transformed into a human before Grim could say any more. Ha! Looks like I got the last word. Grim growled at me, but it was his playful growl. I patted his head affectionately as I passed by to open the front door. He swiveled his head to lick my wrist and followed me inside, jumping on the sofa to lounge. I found Floretta in her workroom, a tiny room off the kitchen. I imagine it served as a pantry before Floretta came to live here. The walls were lined with every herb imaginable, dried or in the process of drying. At approximately 6 feet long and 4 feet wide, there was enough space for Floretta's work table and a chair, which sat at the back of the room. There was no windows in here, so Floretta had an electric lamp on the table with the brightest bulb possible, powered by limited free energy. The work table was always a bit of a mess, with papers piled haphazardly in one corner, various glass vials, and stacked books towards the back, and used tea and coffee mugs strewn about. There was always a perch near the back for Rupert, and although he always went outside to defecate, a few loose ebony feathers always found their way to the table surface and added to the mess. Floretta referred to her space as organized chaos. That sounds like my desk. She was in the middle of grinding up something in her heavy marble mortar. Her back turned to me and her hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. I leaned in the doorway and rapped the knuckles soft on the frame. Knock, knock. Hey, Cressida. Be a dear and hand me the funnel, will you? It hangs on the wall to your right. Floretta didn't even look up. I located the funnel and placed it on her table next to her. Floretta, was your mother annoying? I asked her without preamble. She let out a low laugh. She left us when I was young, so I don't remember if she's annoying or not, she replied. Whoops. I had forgotten that detail of Floretta's past. I hope it wasn't a sore subject. Based on her reaction, it didn't seem to be. Oh. Since she didn't have any competition about leaving her family, though, my guess is that yes, she would have been annoying. Why do you ask? What did Belinda say to you? She turned in her seat to look at me, a small smile gracing her kind face. How anyone could have left this woman as a child was beyond me. I marveled at the amazing job Lyle had done as a single father to raise such a caring soul. The usual, I responded with a sigh. Mom wants to know why, as an adult, barely out of childhood, I might be interested in being single and living my life on my own terms rather than immediately setting out to find my perfect mate. I see. I mean, look at you. Here you are, older than me, at 31 and still single. It's not like you are rushing all over Gaia's green world trying to find a man. I swear I saw her face fall just a bit just before she swiveled back around to focus on her table. Her hair, while held back in a loose ponytail, still fluffed up enough to hide her face from view. Well, That's a little different. Uh-oh. I felt like I had inserted a paw into my mouth. What makes it different? I asked softly. In a quiet voice, she answered, because this is a small town, and nobody is here for me here. And I don't have the chance to get out and see the world like you do. So, it looks like the single life it is for me. That doesn't mean you'll be single forever. If it's fated to be, Mr. Right will find you. Still hiding behind her hair, she chuckled sadly. I wish I had your optimism. She turned around to look at me, determination etched in her face. But listen, enough about me. Be kind to your mother. She just wants what she feels is best for you. Just because what you feel is right for your life and what she feels is right don't match up doesn't mean one of you is wrong. You both are vastly different people with vastly different views on the world. The bottom line is that she loves you no matter what. Don't go out on another job being mad at your mother because you never know what the future will bring. Floretta had a way of putting things into perspective. I wanted to stay mad at my mom, like a moody kitten, but my friend had a point. Feeling properly chastised, I nodded at her wisdom. Wow, Floretta, you're absolutely right. While I'm gone, can you tell her that I love her? I really do. Floretta stood and gave me a quick squeeze. Of course, Cress. And that is chapter 7. Anybody got, let me know on your thoughts. I thought the ending was a little weird of that chapter. With what Floretta was saying. I don't know. It's a weird ending, I think. But that's okay. The rest of it I thought was good. I know like a lot of people this is like normal. Hold on. Like there's just some people that just have it thinking that you have to get married and all that. I don't think you have to and whatnot. Whatever you want to do. It's like the whole like having kids and stuff. People think you always have to have kids, but yeah, so I could understand like I can understand where she's coming from. Cressida. I mean, I get the, her mom just sounds like a normal mom, so not bad. But yeah, I think we've heard her backstory a little bit about like with her mom and her dad, so that wasn't new, but that was good to like get a refresher because it's been a while. So anyways, if nobody have any thoughts, I will be stopping right here actually. Just to remember that after chapter 8 and 9 actually, chapter 8 and 9 will not be on YouTube. So remember to follow me on all the socials. All of it is Legacy Bookish, Bookstagram, Twitter, on here, on Twitch, Facebook, TikTok. All of it's a Legacy Bookish except for YouTube. YouTube, it's Bookish Legacy. So just remember to follow me so you could get updates of when I go live, when I do other special stuff, all that stuff. Yeah, especially if you like this, like the readings, and if you like the reviews and stuff, let me know. But yeah, if you like all of it, just make sure you follow me. I really appreciate it. It shows me that you like what I'm doing too. So anyways, I guess that's it. The next stream is actually tomorrow night. I have it sooner. I think it's at like, it might, or do I have it later? Give me 1 second. I'll find out. So it looks like it's later. So I have it at 11 p.m. So tomorrow night, 11 p.m. We'll do chapter 8. We'll try to do chapter 9 too. We'll see. So come tomorrow to hear the rest of the story. So, alrighty. Well, I will see y'all tomorrow night.